Good people. Good people. Happy Sunday, everybody. As normal, Scratcho, we live. Scratcho 254, we live. But before we start, man, before we start today, hey, I gotta give a big shout out. Shout out, man. I gotta give a big shout out. Hats off to the Lionesses for qualifying for Afro Basket. That's huge. That's huge. That's a job well done. Job well done. Kudos to everyone who was involved, who helped the team in any way, one way or the other. Man, kudos to you, man. Coaching team, technical bench. Kudos. Good adjustments, man. Good adjustments in the game, and also just for the players. Players, I know, Felmas and Victoria, man, great accolades, individual accolades, but as a team, great effort, great effort. Kudos, saludos. We'll we will be following you, and good luck in your preparations. And as you move towards Afro basketball, we will keep you following you on every social media. In practice, we'll follow you. But today again is a tough conversation today. I have a partner with me here today. I have Joyce Nyagol, who is the vice chair for the Kenya Women's Basketball, Kenya Basketball Women's Commission. She's the vice chair, and also she's the legal counsel for them, a legal advisor for them, and also I'll be joined by Coach Carey, General Secretary, Coaches Association of Kenya. And obviously, if you have a question, please do not hesitate. Do not hesitate to send that to me, and we'll pose that question to the panel. Again, the conversation here is how do we get better? How do we move forward? How do we move forward? We are not here to address any court filed case. So again, please bear that in mind. We cannot discuss a proceeding which is which has been filed already. So we are about to talk about what do we need to do as players, coaches, administration, and this also holds to parents. What do parents need to do? Parents need to be aware also of what do we need to do to help alleviate this trend, and also players, man. Players, we gotta know. We have to empower our players to know that they can report such instances or incidents without the fear of being targeted by anybody else. So Coach T9 is on here, but we cannot see him on camera. So I know he can hear me, but we're trying to work on his camera. So please bear with us, Coach.
Yes, sir.
Man, thank you to be on the show. I know you're having some technical difficulties with your camera, but you on, Coach. Welcome,
Yeah.
Joyce.
Thank you.
How you doing, Joyce?
Thank you for having me.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but ni kama uko ile room ingine. You gotta speak up just a little bit, Joyce.
Thank you for having me, man.
Yeah. Thanks for taking your time to be on here. I know we can't see you, but I just know that I appreciate you taking your time to do this. Even Joyce, we appreciate you. Thank you for taking your time to visit with us on especially on just a sensitive topic. And right out of the back, I was just saying before brought you guys on board that we're not here to discuss a case. We're not here to talk about anything that's going on in the proceedings, who did what, who did that. That's not the point of this show today. The point is what we want to do today is how do we move forward? Why did this go on for so long? And I think I'll start with you, Joyce. Let's start right there. Like, why do we think this went on so long? Like we are saying, we knew that favorite comment is Awatwali Jua. So why do we think this has gone for so long without it being in the light? Again, I'm not talking about anything about the case. I'm just talking about the culture. It's been common knowledge now, like in sports in Kenya and everything we are doing that, that this does happen.
Okay. I like the fact that you said the culture. the word you've used, the culture. When
Yes.
it comes to matters of sexual abuse in worldwide and in Kenya especially, we are alive to the fact that reporting matters of sexual abuse is a very sensitive topic. Number one,
Yes.
we're in a society that blames the victims when it comes to matters of oh no, sorry. When it comes to matters of sexual abuse and reporting, we live in a society where we are quick to condemn the victim as opposed to the perpetrator. I'll take us back to something that was in the news yesterday about the kids in school falling pregnant, and what did our CS for health, I mean education, say? Girls should stop, should something in the line of avoiding. Oh no,
We lost you, Joyce. I'll let Coach chime in. Coach.
Yes, sir. What I think has been happening is that yes, it has happened for a long time, and the girls or the people who have been taken advantage of haven't known what to do or have been afraid of what the consequences would be. So I think that the victims or the coaches who take the advantage of this, uh, it's a question of just the culture, and they know that they are always right, but the girls or the people who have been taken advantage of don't know where to go, and this happens. And taking if it's a sexual thing, or someone is saying he's going to give you a scholarship so that he can do something with you, I think that people have been the people in question have been afraid, not knowing the not knowing their rights, as in what they're supposed to do when such things happen. And I think
Yes.
that it is time that things people start calling these things out. I think it's been fear that has been done by the coaches on these players, on the people they take advantage of. And the players who have been done, this thing have been done against, have been vulnerable. So it's like they're desperate and they don't know what to do, and they don't know who to talk to. And then now the issue that is very difficult is prosecuting such a problem, because the player or the person taken advantage of has to be brave enough to be able to talk about it and to know that it is a secret. So you need to find a solution right now of safeguarding the next generation. Or if things happen to these people, we need to find a way to protect them, have girl protection policies that we have to have. And I think as coaches, as the Coaches Association, we've tried to do this before, sending out the how to conduct yourself, the forms. But since it's been looked at as a political thing, so now we have to really come back again and start that conversation and talk about it and actually take steps to help our vulnerable girls who are being taken advantage of. That's what I can say for now.
Yes, I'll let Joyce finish her statement. Great comments, Coach. I'll let Joyce finish her statement. We have you back, Joyce. Thank you.
Yeah.
thanks. Sorry about that. I was just saying
Yeah.
we live in a society where the culture of reporting abuse cases are quick to blame the victim as opposed to going after the perpetrator of the sexual abuse cases, or even just abuse in general. So that's the main problem. And I think if I caught on what Coach T9 said as I just joined, we when most victims are in a position where, number one, they are afraid to speak out. They're afraid because
Yes.
of they're afraid because of what how vulnerable they are. They're afraid because they don't know the channels they can use to speak out against these issues that are happening to them. And number three, in line with being vulnerable, they fear that if they speak out, whatever opportunity that's coming to them in light of the situation they're in will be taken away. So what do? They choose to keep quiet and hope it will die down, or it will end, or it will stop at some point? I think that's the main issue we have.
Yeah, so I know both of you have mentioned something very important, which I know, and I think that's the biggest key we have to get over this is that what prevents these people from talking? What prevents the victim from talking? And I know you have mentioned vulnerability. I know that's a big one also, and like low self-esteem, or like a weak relationship with parents not being there. If a lady comes and or a young athlete and they are going on road trips, you find maybe the parents are not involved they are not involved in the sport. They don't understand the sport. So there is also the breaking of links there with the parents. So what do you think we can do better? How do we change that? How do we change these factors? And I'll let you, coach, go first. How do we change? For example, I'm a coach. I'm taking kids. I have a basketball academy. How do we make sure parents, families, anybody is involved is welcome and understands what's going on in the academy or in the team?
From the onset, there has to be communication, because you're taking someone's child for an event, and they have to know what kind of event they are going to, who's going to take care of these kids, what time they're coming home, the basics, like who is going with them, who's going to take care of these things. It's supposed to be open, and I think it has to be documented, and we have to find a way to do a form. If it is school, if it's a child under 18, it needs to be documented, because if it is not documented, then you sign as a coach that whatever happens to this kid, I'll be responsible. Therein comes the problem, because most of us
Yes.
coaches who handle these kids, they don't want to take responsibility. They don't want to
Yes.
do it, and we have to force them to do it, because now someone has to be responsible for something. Because if something goes wrong, someone has to be taken responsible. That is the thing. We have to force that thing. We have to force guys to be responsible. Because if you don't do that, then something else is going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen next. And I think that's the way forward. We have a form, the school or the team has a form. If it's a minor, the name is written. The coach, the parent, the coach have to come and meet. The parent brings the child, and it is known that this coach is going to take care of this child out of this time. And then the coach has to make sure that the kid or the child goes back where he or she came from, because that is where the buck stops. If you, as a coach, this is one of the things about coaching. One of the things about coaching is integrity, and
Yes.
they,
No doubt.
and
No doubt.
it can being a coach is more than just teaching the game. See, you're a parent, you're a guardian, and all those things, and you have to stand up there because you're coaching children and you want to make them become better adults. And as a coach, you have to know this is one of your roles, not just teaching basketball and going home. And once we take that responsibility and know our roles, it's going to be very easy for us to handle this situation. I think it's very, very important that we know that a coach has a very, very big role in the development of a child or a person he or she takes charge of. Because imagine you have kids and God has given you an opportunity to bring a child up, and that is your job. And if you take advantage of that, then I think you should not be coaching any basketball or any sport for that. I'm sorry for the noise.
No, yes, sir. I understand that, and Joyce. I'll pose this question to you, Coach T. Nile just brought up a very important issue. So, an institution has a coach, and the coach is accused of something, or something happened, or they found guilty. What responsibility does an organization or that institution have in making sure that this doesn't happen to their players, or to the athlete, or to the our young athletes?
Okay. As I attempt to answer your question, I want to take you back
Yes.
to a comment you made just before Coach T9 spoke.
Yes.
One of the things you said is that players probably have low self-esteem issues. Players have broken ties with their parents and
Broken homes.
whatnot.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
broken homes. Now, that kind of narrative is what we are trying to stop and break,
Yes.
because having that kind of narrative out there goes on to say that you are you are ripe for abuse, because you have low self-esteem. You are a ripe candidate for abuse. This narrative is what now puts the whole responsibility, the whole burden on the victim. And what you're trying to say
Yes.
is persons who are in a position where they are responsible for players, in this case we're talking of coaches, regardless
Yes.
of whether a player is from a broken home or has low self-esteem, it's a coach's responsibility not to abuse a player, right?
Yes,
And that's
but
the reason
I
why.
think the point I was trying, let me address that first. I think the point I was trying
Please
to
do.
make was
Mhm.
the point I was trying to make was when there's when someone has a low esteem and the coach comes in and they build that low esteem and they make the player feel better, there's a great relationship develops there. And sometimes it's a blood relationship for the coach because they are building up these young athletes. And I think I didn't mention it. I wasn't talking about it as it's what I'd say it's one of the factors that has been identified. When coaches know it and help a player overcome, then on the flip side of that, there's a relationship which might develop from the coach being that parent or the coach being that person who's building the player up. So they have a more relationship. Now the relationship becomes very different as opposed to when the father is there or the mother. And I'm not saying a coach should take advantage of that, but I mean the coaches should be aware of things like that so that can help them understand the journey they're taking.
Okay.
If that
I'm
makes
glad
sense.
you've clarified that. I'm glad you've clarified
Yes.
that, because
Yes.
okay. So your question
Yes.
was, could you
I
repeat your
mean,
question, please?
so if coaches, if I have an organization,
Mm-hmm.
I hire a coach, and this coach goes around and does abuse kids or are my athletes,
Yeah.
what responsibility do I have as pertaining to us and our law? What responsibility do I have? Can that responsibility be on me? That's my question. If the coach is
Okay.
doing this,
Okay. Number one, if when you're dealing, you have an organization that has children, it's your responsibility to protect those children, because children are
yes,
minors and they are not able to give consent to whatever, and the parents put the children in your hands, so you're responsible for those children. So when you hire a coach and a coach abuses the children and whatnot or whatever, if you when you come to that information as the owner of the organization or the person responsible for the organization, it's your duty to report that to
yes,
okay, it's a duty to report that. Number one, abuse is a crime, so it's a duty to report that to the police. And even so, it's your further duty to make sure that you follow the channels within the federation, within KBF, within FIBA, to report this abuse, so that number one, that coach is or person responsible for those children is removed from that position where they could pose possible future harm to other kids. Number two, once that person is out of that position, then the matter is reported further to the police or the authorities. Then it becomes a case that's being handled by the authorities. But for you as a person in charge of the organization, you can take that step then to report that person and follow the procedure and remove the person from being responsible of for those young people, kids, or even players as adults. Yeah.
so and I'll pause, and anybody can chime in on this one. So where we stand right now, for example, best practices right now across, I understand, like in the US, for example, every organization does have a sexual harassment policy. From when you work, Sexual Sports Act and all that is in effect. Everybody signs it, and so that you are never ever going to be saying that you are never aware of, even though you might be aware, you're given the paper, you sign it, it's put in your file so that you can never say that I was never aware that this was prohibited or this is a violation. So where for Coach Carey, like, so with coaches, where do we go now? Where do we go to make sure these coaches are in compliance and understand the repercussions of if they cross this line?
Great question. What I think needs to happen first is we need to have a database for our coaches. That's very, very important. And then now we need to start putting in a background check on all our coaches, because after we put in the code of conduct that coaches can sign, and then we have a background check with them. So now we're able to tell the federation that whichever coach you take, we just inform the institutions around that if you're going to take any coach to coach your team, look for us. We give you the information about that coach, so they can have a background check on him or her. Then we can now give the people who require the coach appropriate information on the coach, because I think that is very, very important. Because maybe some guys have stories about certain issues, and if we do that, it's going to reduce this problem of people taking advantage of kids or doing any other thing that spoils the name of coaches. Because coaches have to be held in high regard and high esteem and high integrity, because they meet their players. They're the first people to meet their players and the last people to meet their players at the end of the day. And they have a very powerful tool, and if we don't curb that,
Yes.
it's going to give us issues later.
And Joyce, I'll pose this question to you. So when I was doing, when I do basketball coach and basketball clinics, so there is also like two different points. There's two different aspects of the sexual harassment. One is there's the rape, which is for the minors under 18, and there's the sexual misconduct for someone who's above 18. Because as coaches, we are tasked to have a professionalism and not to break the task. You're privileged to coach these kids, so you cannot break the trust. But the argument is hypothetical, and this is what I think most people don't get. There's an argument that this person is over 18, but there's imbalance of power. Let's talk about that. When the athlete is over 18 but under a coach, and there is an expectation of a coach who has not signed a coaching policy or a standard policy.
That's a tough task, because now the coach has the power, and the coach knows he has the power. So
Yes,
I think that is a question of taking advantage of the athlete, because now it's a very thin line to argue out this case, or even because it all depends on what the player says. It's one-on-one, and what the coach says. It's a very difficult situation right there. And for me, I think the coaches who take this, because the coach will always take because of power, he's at a higher chance of taking advantage of the situation. And say, you want to play in my team next weekend, we need to have ABCD, and now, and the girl is over 18, so in this situation, I think that we really have to find a way. Actually, right now, I don't know what to do about this situation, because both of them are like, the coach is wrong, and the player is also now was learning to that situation. That's a very tough call, because
Yeah, but but again, without a policy in place to address that, it becomes a tough question. And I'll pose you:
yeah.
what do we do with a scenario like that, Joyce? Like, so another coach, if there's no policy in place.
Okay.
Mhm.
First of all, to just take you back again a bit. I'm sorry, I'll be doing a lot of taking you back.
Yes,
Um, Engaging in sexual intercourse by an adult with a person under 18, that's defilement, and that is
yes.
an outright crime from the word go. So
There's no doubt. There's no two ways about it. It's
yeah,
it's a done. Yes, yes,
yes, it's defilement, and also because of the reason that a person under 18 cannot consent to anything, and this includes having sex engaging in sexual relations with an adult. Number two,
yes,
for a person over 18,
yes,
it amounts to rape when the person does not consent. So
yes,
consent can be express consent. I agree and say yes, I want to do this. Consent can be the question of consent comes in this case where it's coerced. So in the case where a coach tells a player, for you to play in my team, I mean, for you to play the game coming over the weekend, you have to sleep with me. If that player gives into that situation at that point, that amounts to coercion, and that cannot be consensual relations between two adults in this case, because the person is over 18. So that amounts to rape. If I mean, the consent was not expressly given, it was coerced. So
yes,
to answer your question, how can we go about it? FIBA has a policy regarding abuse, and some of those pillars that FIBA have regarding sexual abuse is: number one, to observe the rights of children and adults at risk. Adults at risk in this case is those vulnerable players who are adults, but for whatever reason, this being playing in that certain team is their means to the end, or whatever it provides bread. Number two, they have a zero tolerance policy to abuse. This includes sexual abuse, physical abuse, and whatnot. Number three, the FIBA, one of the pillars that FIBA policy against abuse has is to have risk management, so that they identify, the risks that could come up. Number one, if they foresee a situation where a player is vulnerable financially, in like what you were saying in the beginning, they come from a broken home and whatnot, where coaches need to understand that so those risks need to be factored in from all stages, right from recruitment, from when the coaches are coaching the players, from when players have to be traveling for games and whatnot. Those factors have to be considered, and measures put in place by teams, by the management, so that they avoid any risks that could come could occur to children or such adults at risk. Number four, it's the collective responsibility for all persons in that, like in this case, all stakeholders of basketball, to deal with this issue of abuse. We commonly talk about, we know this has been happening. It's been
yes.
happening to
And that's
Meshach
what's sad.
Kijua.
And that's what's sad about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Everybody's saying that. To
So
Megod Kijua.
collective responsibility is, what are we doing about it? What are
Yes,
us as players doing about it? What are coaches doing about it? What are the officials doing about it? No one wants to take that responsibility to address this issue. That's the challenge we have. And number five, it's the duty of in this case, the federation, the teams, to have uh, to have a channel where these cases can be reported. If a player feels like they're being threatened, or their security is being threatened, or them being able to perform to play, to conduct their duty as a player is being threatened, they should be able to come out and, report confidentially, and not worry about, oh my gosh, if I report this, then my basketball career is over. No, there should be, channels that are available for players to come and address this issue. And I'll take us back to the KBF Constitution. The KBF Constitution states that it has a duty to protect all, players. I'm paraphrasing, to protect players from, all sorts of abuse, which includes sexual abuse. The Kenya Basketball Women's Commission Constitution as well, it also talks of, one of its objectives is to promote the health and safety of members and all, participants of women in basketball in Kenya. So these, on paper, these things are there.
It's there.
It's there. So the issue is the implementation bit of it. That's the challenge we're having. And I'm happy that this FIBA policy against sexual abuse is there. And, KBF being a body
signatory to that.
Exactly. Should be able to actually apply this and apply it to the letter.
Yes. I think that's the toughest thing. Is like everything is on paper, there, but so what do we do? Like, what do we do? Like, how do we provide? And I'll ask you this, Joyce. How do we provide this environment to the? Because I know, like in different organizations, they have like a 1-800 number or like a website. You can go and you can send a message anonymously to the person. Like every organization will have like a Title IX person who is in charge of investigating and bringing this to the attention of the organization. But so for us, like let's talk about basketball. So if these ladies have this, if someone is a victim, where do we want, as a women commission, what do they do? What do these ladies need to do to report this? Where can they go? Do they email you? Like,
okay, as the Women's Commission, we've opened a space for these girls who have fallen victim to these issues to come and report, to talk about it. We are looking into providing, counseling services for these girls who've been victim of this perpetrator and others, not this one in particular. So we are opening the conversation. Like you're saying, it's there on paper, but there are no mechanisms in place to address this issue. So what we are doing at this point is that we are opening channels to have this conversation as the Women's Commission. We have a database for persons who've been aggrieved, so that we can, if they're willing to, have the matter reported to the police and have the matter, escalated at that point. But yes, we are opening the conversation. We're having these discussions. We're talking about it, and I think that's the key thing to it: being able to come out and talk about it. It's been happening for so long because no one talks about it. People just talk about it in the confines of the four walls, but no one wants to speak up about it. We're having this discussion, and the more we talk about it, the more we are going to, number one, hopefully deter future or any ongoing perpetrators, and number two, move on to the next stage where we bring those perpetrators to book.
Yeah. I think, especially, I don't think basketball should be a tool where people use it to abuse others. It's unfortunate because basketball is a great sport, and sports generally just can open different doors for so many young people. So, but Coach, I want to ask you this. So in most countries, for example, in the US, when you coach, you are required to take a youth protection program, and you take a safe sport course. Where are we with that, with basketball coaches in Kenya?
When I was in the US, I went through this USA basketball program, and one of the policies there was I had to do it, and then I had to do a background check. before
Yes.
I did anything, you know.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think in our curriculum right now, we need to include it in the curriculum as we teach the young coaches or the coaches. All coaches need to be taught this policy or child protection policy. How do you deal with kids?
Yes.
These are things we need to put in our curriculum. Just don't teach them tactics and all that, but this is key, because if we don't take this seriously, then even what we're teaching will not be taken seriously. I think as the next thing we have to do is teach the issue of child protection policy and how to handle yourself when you're dealing with young men and women. That's very, very key. I think
Yeah.
it has to be done ASAP.
And don't even get me wrong. Please, if you're watching this, don't get me wrong. The child protection safe sport is not just to protect that child; it's also to protect the coach and make the coach
Yeah,
aware of
yeah,
situations that might be perceived as bad, and then put you in a hard situation. For
yeah,
example, if you, for example, you're a man coach coaching women, you
yeah,
should have on your coaching staff some ladies, a chaperone, to go
yeah.
in the
But
to
a
check
lady who's an
house,
assistant.
who's an assistant. You should have a lady. Or for example, if you're in a room talking to an athlete, you should not be in the room one on one with the athlete, no matter what is happening, and you should have someone else and have the door open. I think the perception is that we are accusing coaches of doing wrong. No, no, we are saying this is to help you become a better coach and be aware of the scenarios.
Because but like in America, when you're coaching that team, last year around January, the coach was coaching a ladies' team. He would not allow himself to be with the girls alone. He would not allow
Yeah,
himself to do that. He would not allow himself. He told me, in America, if you get yourself in a room with a girl, anything can happen. They
yeah,
can even accuse you of something you didn't even do. But now, how do you protect yourself from that? Because you're only the two of
yes,
you, you know?
yes,
And what
yes,
you're saying is real. Like, there has to be a third party who is a lady when you guys are having because it's a team conversation anyway, you know? It's not a conversation between two people. It is a team issue, and he has to be there. He has to be there. And you're right that it protects also the coach,
yes,
because you never
yes.
know what's
It
going to
does.
happen.
It does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And Joyce, I'm back to you, Joyce, and you mentioned something. You mentioned something, and I'm just following up on that conversation on that topic. So when these people are coming, there's that fear. There's that fear that their character is going to be scrutinized. We are not going to believe them. That's the first one. That's the main obstacle to disclosure, is that the victim is scared of us not believing the victim, or the credibility of the victim. This is a coach who's been coaching. Let me say, a coach, I've been coaching basketball for 30 years, and here is someone who's just beginning, and they're accusing me of that. So obviously, the credibility also is, how do we overcome that? How do we overcome that and give them that safe space to feel that whatever they say, we will take their word from it and launch investigations?
I think you've just answered the question. I mean,
We do it. How did
if someone comes to you and reports, that kind of issue, you give them a
Yes.
space where they can, number one, freely talk about it and say, this is what is happening to me, and I would like, whatever action taken. So us who are, in that position of authority, it's our mandate to investigate, to look into whatever is being reported, and not just to sweep it under the rug and hope it will go away. We have to actually take action and investigate. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
you see, so the first words that come out of the, well, watch out, watch out, like the words we say are very crucial to someone
you
when
see,
someone is coming to tell you something. And well, watch out, like
are
the
you for real?
words we
They're going to
say.
say, are you for
Yes, are you
real?
for real? This again? You're starting to asking them questions like, did this happen?
Mm.
From the training I've taken, like and I've been blessed. I've been in different rooms and different organizations have different policies, but so they talk about wards and training that as people who are in position, administrators, coaches, we should be aware of how to foster this conversation because it's not an easy conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was what I was getting to. It's not an easy conversation. It's not anybody can hold that conversation with a victim because of just of our biasnesses and some of the things we are not aware of or we don't know how to deal with it.
What I think, what you're saying, what coach you're saying is just the reality that even if someone complains that this coach has done this to me, first you ask, is it real? Is it true?
Yes.
You won't believe the person who's saying it. But the thing that should happen is that the people should take these things seriously now because now people are getting more confident in saying what they think because people have been so quiet for so long. You see, so as of now, you should create a channel where they can complain and not be put down. They can do it in
Yes.
writing. They can make a phone call and record that they feel confident that they can talk about their issues because sometimes a person may find that he or she cannot talk about it. So you have to give them either record what they're saying and then follow through with that, or write it somewhere, do a story, do an SMS, and we have to find a way to make them feel like they're being heard and they're being taken seriously. Because most people will just brush this thing aside, but it's still emotionally it's affecting the person it's been done against, and she'll not play at all. She'll not have the confidence to play for this coach, and the coach will be asking, "Why aren't you playing well?" Because he's taking advantage of the situation. But if the people know that something is happening, then I think even the confidence will come up and they'll just keep playing, knowing when story has been had out there and someone is handling it, even if it is confidentially. And confidentiality is very, very important. I think even there should be a separate uh, entity to deal with this issue. If you give it to, because KDF knows it, the Women's Association knows it, Coaches Association knows it, but there has to be someone who is not known by everybody who's handling this situation, who is independent, who will not take sides, and that is key because these people have to know that whatever they're saying, I'm saying this confidentially, and it will not come back to me that I said it, and it will not affect the person who is saying it. That's my take. I mean, it's a very serious issue right now.
Yeah. I agree. I think, as you mentioned, I think someone neutral would be awesome. Someone like Child Protective Services of Kenya coming in and really taking a good look at this thing. I think that would be one of the best ways to go. That's someone who's neutral, someone who does not know, understand, and they understand both the law and what is required of anybody in power. I think someone neutral would be awesome. But so for us right now, Joyce, in your opinion, what can be the immediate steps we take that even teams and players we can put in place right now that don't need a lot of tufanye hivi tujipange hapana. What are some of the steps we need to take immediately to push us forward?
Okay. The first thing we can do, which is something that I mentioned earlier, that's under the FIBA safeguarding policy, is everyone taking that collective responsibility to address this issue. This goes right from players, coaches, referees, parents, everyone take that collective responsibility. Number two, have a sexual harassment policy in place that should be under by the federation, that each team should abide by. This includes coaches, players, coaches, players, the technical team should abide by that policy. And as you said, or was it Coach T9 who said, anyone can be a victim and any person can be found on the other side. So this will
Yes.
protect both the players and the coaches or the technical team. Yeah, so those two things can be something that we have going on from the start. Then from there we have regular trainings to with relation to sexual harassment, sexual abuse. I mean, these are things that we all should be knowing, but for one reason or another, we want to imagine that not everybody is privy to this information and they're doing it out of ignorance or whatever. So if we have this conversation, we continue having this conversation, these
Yes.
discussions, I think that would set a foundation for us to build on from there.
I know you brought a great point, the point of ignorance, and I think that's why most organizations go over the policy again with you, and you sign it so that you can never claim ignorance. Because I think, and that's a great point. Most people do claim ignorance. Most coaches even they're like, I didn't know, I didn't know. So, if we have this and it's signed and all coaches everybody's held responsible. I think that's a way to go. I know Ajush is saying here. Peter, I think our problem is self-created. We need to get a hotline that is independent from the federation to handle cases of sexual abuse. I do agree. I'm 100% for that. I do agree. And I know maybe Joyce did not see that. This is one of the coach here says, I think our problem is self-created. We need to get a hotline that is independent from federation to handle our cases of sexual abuse. We cannot investigate ourselves. But at the end of the day, players. We even have players association, and as players also, I think we should have a big push to create awareness on what our rights are. I feel sometimes when I watch basketball in Kenya, I feel as players we don't understand our rights, or we don't know. We don't. The game is. We love the game so much that we give up some of our rights just to play the game. And I'm not saying this in any way to say someone deserves what is happening. That's not my point. I'm just saying I think if we get empowered a little bit and we understand our rights, then we will stand our ground. What do you say, Coach?
You're right on that point. The problem in the country is that people forget themselves. They love the game so much and forget about themselves. Because if the players are not playing the game of basketball, then we'll not have basketball at the end of the day, because players are the majority, And if they know their rights and just push for the right that is their rights, not politics or anything, saying we need ABCD in place before we play, we need to protect it, we need insurance, those kind of things. Just the basic stuff. I think basketball will really grow if they know their rights and they know that they're not doing this just to be happy, because they need to protect themselves, And that is the problem we have in our country. Players forget themselves, then after 2-3 years they ask themselves why they are playing. The question they were asked before they started playing is, why are you playing?
Yes.
Why are you playing? Are you playing to have fun? Are you playing if you get an injury? What happens with you? I mean, who's going to take care of that? And that is very, very important. But if you don't have a players association that is strong, that is not political, just fighting for the things the rights that are for the players and the coaches and the women, everybody, just know your place and fight for what is yours. And these issues will not arise, And that is very, very important. I think what you're raising is important. Maybe people don't take it seriously, but for me, the problem that has been there is anytime you form these associations, the federation don't take it like you are fighting for your rights. You think you're doing it for voting rights. It should not be the issue, That's where the issue is, because all this, if these rights and associations are strong, then the federation will be very, very strong, because they will not be
You
led to go
mentioned
through the
players as
hoop.
well.
Yeah,
You mentioned players association, and Ismail also said here, all players should form a players association that protects them from such things. They can be strong and have a voice in case of this issue. Ismail, I know the players association is there, and again, but I know that, there's more to a players association than I think there is more to it. Like, as coach mentioned, it has to be very vibrant. I think all associations need to be very vibrant and be very diligent in what they stand for.
yeah,
For example, if the Players Association is fighting for the rights of the players, the Women Association is doing the same thing for the women, and the Coaches Association is doing the right thing. I think, as you mentioned, the federation grows strong.
yeah.
What do you have to say, Joyce?
They have checks and balances, coach.
Yeah, yeah,
At the end of the day, we can talk about having these measures we want to put into place to stop this abuse and curb it. But at the end of the day, the responsibility lies on that individual. Do not
yes,
abuse. It's that simple. If you as a coach feel that you should get some certain favors in exchange of you doing your job to have a player, play, or like a player deserves to play, then you're doing the wrong thing. You shouldn't be in that position, because you're in that
yes.
position of power. You're already, the balance is shifted, because the player
In
feels
power
like,
balance.
exactly, because they feel that the player feels like, I need to, I need to perform. I need to do better. I need to excel in this thing for me to be able to play. But if a coach then comes in and feels that, or puts a player in such a position where they have to cede that power, that balance even further, then the problem is the coach. Therein lies the problem.
I know, but I understand the signing. If someone, you can sign a paper, but don't, don't don't do what the paper says. I understand that, but I think also it's a starting point for us. If you have this policy in place, then you can never claim ignorance or you never knew. And I think that's why most people or most organizations have to sign the paper. Also, is to do that. But the next step also is, so when we find out as an organization what are our responsibilities, I'm aware of it. I'm the coach, or I'm the owner of the team. I'm aware of it. It's been to my attention as a coach. I think also that has to be very clearly stated on the policy what responsibility I hold in regards to that issue, especially if it's brought to my attention or I'm aware of the issue. Don't you think so, George?
I agree. I mean, as the owner of the team, it's your responsibility to take to take it further, to take action. And I think I said this when we started this conversation, to report, to remove them from that position where they would possibly cause, any future harm to those persons, and make sure that they face the consequences. But if you continue ignoring it or brushing it under the carpet, then the problem continues.
And what are some of the things, for example, I know we mentioned about this, but so coaches, especially like men coaching women and vice versa, what are some of the things, like as a commission for women, what are some of the things you would like to see in place being done at the moment that we don't do?
That's a very good question. allow me
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
allow me to circle back to it in a couple of minutes.
Yes, yes. Oh, coach, like what would you
Yeah,
like to see now moving forward? Now we are aware of, what would you like to see moving forward? Like, what would you like to see, from coaches?
I'd like us to conduct ourselves more responsibly. because we know what we hold, we know our status in the society as coaches. And then if such a case happens, I think as an example to everybody else, the law has to follow its course, and coaches have to take the onus on themselves to honorably stop being the coaches of the team that they're handling, because you do not have you cannot even coach that team that you're handling if such a case is brought against you. Just need to step down and move on and do other things, because you know what you hold, you know what you're supposed to do, and we just have to be more responsible and more take responsibility of our actions and accept that we've done wrong and it's time to be corrected. And I think that is it. I mean, there's no two way about that. You're either taken off the job or yeah. I mean, I got no more words to say.
Yeah. Say less. I guess say less. I know Alex Aluga here says the document should clearly define what constitutes ethical behavior and articulate the expectation of player, coaches, officials, and all stakeholders in the manner of their interactions. I think we are all in agreement.
Correct.
So I think I
Yeah,
agree.
correct.
That's the starting
Absolutely.
point. That's the
Absolutely.
starting point. The policy
Yeah.
has to be in place. It has to clearly state what ethical behavior is and clearly state what happens if you don't miss that. If you don't miss,
Yeah.
you don't meet if you don't behave in that manner, the consequences have to be laid out for you to
Yeah.
understand. I, I'm totally agreeing that that's the starting point, but then we got to
Yeah.
build on that. We got to build on that and obviously do the right thing. And for Coaches Association, like how far off or how far away do you think we are before we make it mandatory that people have to take the child protection services course? And I know it's offered in Kenya. I know if coaches don't haven't taken it, but I know it's offered in Kenya through the child protection services in Kenya. Where do you think we are, and how long would you think before we can make it mandatory for all coaches to how to take that?
Uh, it'll take a while, not a long time, because now you see, sometimes you are very reactive because
Yes, yes,
yes, you are very reactive to situations. Now this has
yes,
happened. Now you need to do it within a very short time. You cannot say
yes,
how much time, but within a very short
yes,
time, we need to take guys through the curriculum and actually involve them and tell them this is what is expected of you, put it in writing and make them sign it so they're able to go to their jobs knowing
yes,
knowing the consequences of their actions. That's very, very important, because they don't need to take things for granted anymore, because you can land in a jail for something that you know. And
yeah.
as you know, ignorance is no defense, you
Oh
know?
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, and let me just update Joyce. I think when Joyce had left, um, I think Alex Aluga here saying the document should clearly define what constitutes ethical behavior and articulate the expectations of players, coaches, officials, and all stakeholders in the manner of their interactions. And I think we are saying, I think that's a starting point where we create this document and everybody has to be aware of the document, sign it, especially if you're handling athletes, period. And it's a starting point. And obviously for coaches, there's the next point, which is to make sure that all coaches have taken the child protection training course, which is offered. I know it's offered in Kenya also. So I think those are some of the two bullet points I think we would like to see enacted immediately or in the near here real fast. Would you agree?
yeah,
Or
yeah. I agree, totally agree. I totally agree.
In terms of that
Yeah,
policy that we are talking
sorry?
about, I'm saying the policy that we're talking about. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. The FIBA safeguarding policy that I was referring to earlier has
Yes.
described all these issues, in
Okay.
detail, and very has put that put brought it all out um clearly for everyone to be able to follow. So if we can adopt that policy as the Kenya Basketball Federation, and have it implemented by the teams, by the different commissions, the players, the coaches, the women's commission. I think that would be a great starting point because it lays down
Yes.
all the steps required to protect players and coaches equally from abuse.
Yeah, and then obviously the next step would that. So, what are some of the things you, as a commission, are thinking that we should be done to protect these ladies? And I think that's a question I posed to you a little bit earlier. I know for
Yeah.
coaches, I would like to see all coaches trained in like child protection. I've been a big proponent of that. I've been a big pusher for that because I know it doesn't mean you're going to be a child molester. It just means you're going to be aware of situations that may put you in compromising situations, and you can avoid those. So for women commission, what are some of the things you as a commission would like to see so that you'd be like, okay, this we are now taking the right step to protect our women and let our girls play?
Okay. Um, Number one, we'd like to have situations where each team has a woman in their um, technical bench. So whether they're an assistant coach, whether it's a team manager, whether it's a woman advisor, having that person in each team would be a great way step forward because it would create a space where if a player feels like they're in a vulnerable position and want to speak out, that woman or that person would be the first point of contact to be able to relay these issues. And as you also mentioned earlier, the issue of training, we should also have this for both for players equally as coaches because in some cases people may not be aware that they're being abused. They would think that this is normal or this is what should be happening considering the situation I'm in. So that kind of
Yes,
continuous training should be ongoing. Basketball should not just be about leave your house, come to the court, train, play over the weekend, then go home. No, it should be a whole a holistic experience. I mean,
yes,
we
holistic. Yes, yes, yes,
we play, we get trainings, we get informed of what our rights are, and I think that's what Coach Chinine also said. Your rights as a player, your rights as a coach. We have these forums where we talk about issues arising that we feel are affecting us as players, or issues that are arising that we think are affecting the coaches, and how to move forward from that. I think those are the things that we would want implemented. And then, like I said before, the having this discussion, reporting, we would also like to see um, action taken. Like I'll take, I'll give an example to what happened earlier in the year, where during the campaign period for the KBF elections, and some words were uttered against some of the candidates who are running for office. So
yes,
us as a commission, we wrote a letter, condemning those words uttered by that individual and the fact that this person who's uttering those derogatory terms against the members of the commission, who are women in general, and such a person was in charge of um, a number of teams, was on the technical bench on the national team, and no action was taken. So those are the kind of things that we need to see. If we speak out about them, we'd like to see action being taken against those. We don't want a situation where um, something dire happens or something really extreme happens for action to be taken. Yeah.
yeah. I know we should hold. Everybody should be held accountable. Everybody should be held accountable for their actions. And again, I'm hoping that we can take these steps and move forward and just get to play basketball at its finest, the way it should be played. It's amazing what we as a country are able to achieve. Think about the backdrop of the ladies going to Rwanda, them winning, and all this was being going on. All this was in their minds. All these conversations. So it's it's amazing what we have been able to achieve as a country in basketball, despite everything, you know. And I can't imagine where the ladies' mindset was, them having left the country when just all this happened. You know, it's crazy to think about it, you know, because mental health is really important when you're going to a tournament and stuff. But you know, but anyways, but as we move forward, so I know we've mentioned about a couple of things like coaches training players, as players training, and all this. What role can we further play? I know we have these forums, we can talk about it. What are some of the other things we can also do? Like you, Women Commission. Like I know you talked about players, associate players having their knowing their rights and educating the players on their rights and all. And who leads that? Who leads those trainings? You know, we as we come to the end of the conversation, we have to have points we can take away and really implement them as soon as we can. Whose peer leads this? Is this something that we go to the Child Protection Service and say, hey, we need this, can you please help us? Or what are some of those resources we can reach out to that can help us achieve these things?
As a Women's Commission, we usually try to have forums or spaces where we can address issues arising. For example, when COVID just hit earlier
Yes.
last year,
Yes.
we had
Yes.
spaces where we had physiotherapists coming to talk about, wellness. We had nutritionists coming to talk to us about such things. So, as the Women's Commission, we'll be able to create forums, create spaces where we can have experts in the field coming to address women on such issues. For example, we are in conversation with FIDA Kenya
Okay.
about
Yeah.
and what we can do to continue to protect our women basketball players. Yeah, so those are some of the things that we're currently doing, and in the future we're looking to have counselors on board to be able to provide services to persons who want to talk about what they've been going through, or even just to give advice to be able to provide information that people might need, or they might not know that they need, but it's information that they know. I mean, that's important to them. So those are the things we're looking into.
Yeah, great initiatives. Yeah, those are great initiatives there. Coach.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, what we need to do right now, like you said, create forums and then do partnerships with, like the child protection guys. If you do a partnership with them, and you can have periodic training or structured periodic training of coaches and players, where we have players being given the right information as to what they can lose with if they do certain actions, because we need to give them the experts so they're able to come and talk to our people about the importance of this child protection policy, integrity, how we need to handle ourselves as far as taking advantage of our athletes is. Yeah.
I appreciate you. It's been a lot of information. It's been a great learning experience for me, hosting you guys and just trying to learn about what steps we need to take. And I appreciate everybody for taking their time to be with us today, this Sunday. Joyce, Coach T9, thank you very much for being with the show. Appreciate you guys' input.
Thank you for having me, man. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having this conversation. It's been a long time coming, and we needed to address it. We needed to talk about it. Thank you.
Yes, and hopefully it's not just a conversation. Hopefully it's something we can spearhead. Scratch 254. We're all in helping in any way we can to make sure that this is not just a conversation, that is actually something we put down on action plan, and we come up with an action plan, action points, and things that we follow through to make sure it's not just a conversation, because that's the
Yeah.
key. We already have it
Yeah.
on paper, but we gotta make it into action.
Happen. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to
You're
make it
right.
happen. Yes.
You're right.
Yes.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you,
Thank you,
man.
everybody. I appreciate it. We'll catch up. Thank you for your time. There we have it. It's a tough conversation. It's very tough, a tough conversation. But it's a conversation nonetheless that we have to hold. It's a conversation nonetheless we have to hold. And it has to transfer. It has to go from just being a policy to a way we live every day, to our things we do. We just don't make an action point. We gotta make an action point and go off it and make it into actions. You know, we should hold ourselves to a higher value, higher esteem, higher everything. We should hold ourselves accountable to something higher. Sports is an avenue that can open many doors for the youth, for anybody. And sports should not be used for sexual harassment or anything like that. So this is a tough conversation, but it's a conversation nonetheless that we had to hold. And I hope and I believe that in the coming days we will see all this we have talked to being enacted and being put into action, and obviously being implemented, so that we can protect our athletes and even for our young ladies. Just let the ladies play. Let the ladies play. Until next Sunday, this is my time.